Hey guys, I had meant to get this video out last night, but I am on vacation and I'm in New York City at the moment, and just haven't had the chance to sit down where there's actual quiet and do a video. So I had a dream the night before last that I believe was an answer to a prayer, and I wanted to share it with you as edification. Now, I'm not claiming a prophecy. I am not a prophet. I just wanted to share the experience with you because I thought maybe it would be edifying to you. You know, since, not really since this whole Joshua thing, because I've had issues with this before, but since the whole Joshua thing and the World Cup thing, I've had a lot of hatred and vitriol aimed at me and this channel. I've had a lot of internet prophets, proclaiming death and destruction over me and hatred for me because of the gospel that I preach. They hate eternal security. They hate the grace of God. And so I've had a lot of folks, claiming the name of God while preaching death and destruction over me in this channel. And it hasn't ended well for the prophets. At every step of the way, I've been vindicated from their prophecies. But being the sensitive conscience that I am, I always want to check my heart with God. I want to make sure that, I'm teaching things correctly, and that I want to be able to self-reflect. I want to be self-aware, and if there is something that I'm doing that God is not happy with, or something that I'm teaching that I've gotten incorrectly, I want to be corrected by God. I welcome correction, and I want to be corrected so that I don't mislead anybody. And so the night before last, before I went to sleep, and I was sleeping in the back of my truck because apparently the World Cup and PGA World Tour and a bunch of weddings and everything was going on in the area that I was staying in, so all the hotels were booked. But lucky for me, my truck is set up for camping, so I have a bed and basically a little apartment in the back of my truck. So I was sleeping in my truck, and before I went to bed, I had just prayed to the Lord. I was like, listen, Lord, if there's anything that I'm doing or teaching that is bringing about my judgment, if the gospel that I'm preaching is wrong, or if I've offended you in some way, or if there's anything to these prophecies of judgment, please let me know. Please speak to me. Please correct me. And I fell asleep, and I had a very powerful dream, and I woke up from this dream at like 4:45 in the morning, went to bed around 1. So I'd only slept for a few hours, and I had a pounding headache when I woke up, and it was just one of those dreams that you felt like you were really there. And I immediately texted, a group chat of mine and a couple of friends of mine, because it was just I woke up and it was just so impactful, that I felt this dream was very significant. So in the dream, and I'm going to try to condense it for you a little bit, because it was a long dream and there was a lot of details in it, but there was a lot of symbolism in the dream. And I do believe God speaks to us in dreams. I think Scripture is very clear on that. You can read it in Job and elsewhere, that God talks to His children in their dreams. And in the dream, I was in this corporate building. It was a building not unlike the buildings that I have been around today and yesterday in New York City. And I was following around this man who, had just had a lot of tragedy in his life. He had just lost 4 of his children in some kind of tragedies. And he was about to lose his job. And I just had a knowing that this man either did not know the Lord, or he was under the Lord's judgment in some way. And I was following around this man, and I remember feeling like really bad for him, and I was advocating for him with his job, and I was, trying to get his boss to not fire him. And I really felt a lot of like grief for this person. And then I was shown a woman who was in a boardroom with her boss. And this woman was being shown something on a projector. And it was like, the best way that I could describe it was some kind of celestial body, like a gas giant. And the boss that was speaking to her, her boss, seemed to have some kind of advanced knowledge about things that she was doing in private. And the boss was basically accusing her of stealing or doing something nefarious or taking advantage of the company in some way. And he was the boss was pointing to a specific spot on this celestial body, like on this gas giant on the projector. And he was, the boss was a woman, was pointing to this little spot on the gas giant, this swirl on the gas giant. And she was saying, you see this spot here? We know what you're doing, and you need to stop it. And basically accusing this woman of having cheated the company or done something deceptive in some way, taking advantage of the company. Well, the woman walked out of the office and she was ranting and raving, and she was saying that she saw that sign before that the boss was pointing to, and that it was a sign of imminent judgment. And she kept ranting and raving all the way out the building, and she was saying that this sign, this swirl on the gas giant, that gave away her infidelity, was a sign. It was an apocalyptic sign, and she'd seen it before, and it was a representation of some coming apocalypse. And she kept repeating this phrase, which I woke up remembering, and it was 17 days minus 26 days. And it was some kind of countdown, prophetic countdown to destruction. And she was ranting and raving. She was repeating this phrase as her and I walked out of this corporate building. And it was the middle of the night. And as we walked out of the building, there was a man to my right who was also walking out. Didn't know him, but he was there. And all of a sudden, I saw the man look up to the sky, and his eyes get really wide, like he saw something really scary. And so naturally, I followed suit, and I looked up to the sky. And what I saw was absolutely terrifying. And I want to remind you that I felt like I was there. Like, it was one of those dreams where you woke up like in a sweat, because it was so scary and so powerful that you felt like you were there. And I looked up, and I saw this gigantic dark storm cloud, like a thunder cloud, and it was flashing with lightning bolts, and it was rushing toward the ground at a very, very fast speed. Like, it looked like it was going to be on top of us in seconds. It was just coming down towards the earth, hurtling at very high speed. It was this gigantic dark thundercloud, and you could see the lightning flashes within the cloud, and it was coming down very fast towards the ground. And so naturally, we ran for cover, and we ran back into the building. Well, that didn't stop the cloud, because the cloud burst through the front doors of the building, and it started enveloping all of the people inside the building, including the woman who was ranting and raving about the prophetic, the day countdown to destruction, right? And the dream made a point to show me this woman being enveloped by the cloud. And when the cloud enveloped her, it was dark, so you couldn't see in it until the lightning flashes. And every time the lightning flashed within the cloud, for a moment you could see inside the cloud. And there were locusts flying inside the cloud. And this cloud had fully enveloped this woman that was ranting and raving the destruction day count. And all of the people in the building were screaming and running and stampeding around. There was just utter chaos. And I had a knowing that in the dream that the people inside the building represented the world and judgment coming upon the world. And there was a point in the dream when all of the people in the building were behind me and the cloud was in front of me. And in order to get to the people, the cloud would have to go through me, because I was just happening to stand in between the two. And the cloud would not touch me. In fact, it went the long way around me to get to the people, because it refused to go and touch me. The cloud would not pass through me. And I remember saying in the dream, did you see that? Did you see that? The cloud won't touch me. The cloud is avoiding me. And this thundercloud actively was avoiding me while it was enveloping everybody else. Well, there was a point in the dream where all the people were going nuts and they were stampeding each other and running over each other to get away from this cloud. And my back was up against this set of big doors. And on the other side of the doors was an auditorium, an empty auditorium, a big, giant, empty auditorium. And I thought, well, all of these people are in trouble. They're stampeding over themselves. I'm going to open this auditorium door so that they'll have room or refuge for them to run to so that they're not running all over each other. And so I turn around and I face the door and I open the door, this big, giant auditorium. And the person directly behind me at this point is a girl that I recognize from real life. She's a girl in my nursing class. And she has a specific relevance that I'm gonna get at here in a second. And I remember that she was directly behind me, and she was basically between me and the storm. And then on the other side, there was this big open auditorium that I was opening to provide a refuge for the people that were lost and in trouble. And then suddenly the storm came out and ran out the front door just as fast as it came in. And everybody, they sighed this kind of sigh of relief as if they thought it was over, but it wasn't over. And as the storm left the building, it went up into the sky, and suddenly it started monsoon raining outside. And I could see the water level up against the glass of the front door, and the water level was rising inches in seconds outside. And one of the people shouted, "It's the flood, it's the flood." And I just remember looking and seeing the water level rising so fast, and I just knew that the world was lost. And I looked up to the sky and I said, "Lord, please not by drowning, because I have a fear of water. I'm drowning." And I woke up. And at first I didn't really understand a lot of this dream. And when you first wake up out of a dream like that, your mind is kind of scrambled eggs, because it was, there's a lot of things going on. There was a lot of symbolism. And I just was praying to the Lord. I was like, "Lord, what were you trying to tell me? What was in this dream? What is this that you're trying to tell me?" And throughout the day, little pieces of it came to me. And I remember I was in prayer with a sister, a dear beloved sister, who I was telling about the dream. And being the beloved sister that she is, she's always a very positive person. And she wanted to pray for a lot of the people that were wishing harm upon me. And so we entered into prayer. And when it was my turn to pray, it was like a download. I had not thought about this before, but the story of Passover just came into my mind. And I'm going to try not to get emotional when I tell you this. But the story of Passover just kind of came into my mind as I was praying. And I remembered the spirit of death, the cloud of death that had moved through Egypt on the night of Passover. And the cloud went through all of the homes of the Egyptians, and it killed their firstborn son, but it passed over. It would not touch the people in the homes with the blood over their door. And immediately it came to me like it was like a download while I was praying that cloud, that thunder cloud in the dream was like the cloud, the spirit of death at Passover. It would not touch me. It passed over me because of the blood of the Lamb. And none of the Israelites that the spirit of death passed over were spared because they were righteous or because they were worthy. They were spared only on account of the blood that they placed by faith over their door. And the reference there is, there's nothing special about me, guys. I'm not special. I'm not God's favorite. God doesn't play favorites. I was passed over because I have the blood of the Lamb over my door by faith. And the spirit of death will not touch those with the blood of the Lamb over their door. Just like the thundercloud, the cloud of judgment in my dream would not touch me. It passed over me. And then I thought to myself, after I got off the phone with this sister, I was like, why was that girl from my class? It was strange. This girl standing behind me, between me and the storm, and on the other side is this auditorium, this big empty auditorium that I was opening for refuge. I said, why was she standing behind me? This girl from my class that has nothing to do with any of this. I recognized her face as clear as day. And it came to me, what is her name? The girl in my class, her name is Grace. So Grace was standing at my back, between me and the storm, as I was opening up the auditorium for the lost as a place of refuge. And you can obviously put the pieces of the puzzle together of what I believe the Lord was trying to tell me in the answer to my prayer. And as all of this came to my recollection, obviously it was pretty emotional because it came to me in pieces. Like, I didn't get all of it at once. You know, it came to me in pieces throughout the day as I was pondering on all of this. But for me, the interpretation is that all of those who have the blood over their door, judgment is not for them. And that it's grace that shields us from the judgment of God. And those of us who are preaching grace as a refuge for the lost are not under God's judgment, and do not need to question these false prophecies which are spoken against us, which represented the woman who was ranting and raving, who was consumed by the storm, because we have the blood over our door, and judgment is not for us. And anyway, I just wanted to share this with you. Like I said, it took me a little while to get all of this together and understand all of it. But, you know, I'm not saying it's a prophecy. I'm just saying, I'm sharing with you my experience of what I believe the Lord was trying to tell me to an answered prayer. So do with that what you wish. I love you guys.